Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the David Watson podcast. Today, I spoke with Sal, and apart from a few technical difficulties, we did a really good job of just talking, chatting, and having a good ramble to each other, and I really enjoyed it. And he also did some books. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you. Hello, welcome to the David Watson podcast. Finally, we're here. We've had a few technical difficulties, one of them being speaking, and as neither of us know what happened, we're just happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
It's a
pleasure
to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much. So, you and I kind of connected through, I don't know, it was like a podcast organising guest type sort of website. So it's kind of, I'm not sure how to describe the connection, because it's one of those where you reach out and I reach out and we try and get something together.
Right.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, after you.
It's amazing because, we made the appointment like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And some of the podcasts, if you want to participate, are like 6 months out, 8 months out. By then you lose totally the momentum of what you even wanted to talk about. So
I didn't know that some of them were that far ahead.
Yeah.
I felt terrible messaging like people like yourself saying, hey, I'm not taking bookings till October, but if you're still interested, because it took me a long time to get back to, and I haven't gotten back to hardly anyone. There was just like, I basically, I think there's like 200 people on the form.
Wow.
And you were just like right at the front of the queue. So I was just going down, because ideally I'd like to get in touch with everyone that applied and try and talk to everybody. Interestingly, it's amazing how many people don't come back to you when you ask them.
Well, the other thing is, every day I wake up, I have 50 junk emails.
Yeah.
At least. But they're not in spam. They're in my regular emails. So at some point, you just like delete. Because your systems can't hold all that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's it. When I was originally listed, honestly, overnight, I think it took about 24 hours. I had 140 applications.
Wow.
I just like, okay, I wasn't anticipating that. And for anyone that has applied and is waiting, I am trying to get through to everybody, but I'm now already booked up until December.
Wow, good for you.
And it's a very interesting process, because it's only 12 months ago, almost 12 months to the day, actually, that I was practically struggling to get guests.
Really? Wow.
And then, you just find these websites and they're like, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? It's like, yeah, sign me up. Where do I sign? And like I said, I never thought about the fact that all those people that never replied, maybe they didn't realise they'd been emailed, and because it took me a while to do it. But that being said, I heard 2 people off that list that have signed up to do it, booked the date, and then just not turned up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
were they young people? Because that's a young people thing.
one of them, which was actually 2 of them, both have very well established businesses.
Uh-huh.
And both cancelled originally, then asked to rebook, and then didn't turn up.
Oh, wow.
And one of them in particular was funny, because it then went through his secretary, and it's just like, and he just didn't turn up, and the other one was a lady, and it was just interesting, because they both sort of cancelled at the last. Actually, no, the lady missed it, apologised and said, could I come back on, could we do another day? And then didn't. Agreed the time and date, and then didn't turn up again. So it's like, stood me up twice.
Life is complicated. She probably didn't hear your accent, else she would have been right there.
This is it. Yeah, because that's a good point. She hasn't even met me yet to know that she can insult me. But normally there's a time period of getting to know me before I get insulted. But it's interesting. It's actually good. It's a useful thing to experience, because you realise not to take it too personally.
Oh, absolutely. today you can't take anything too
No,
personally.
exactly that. And it's because because when you're first doing it and you're first trying to set up a podcast and you're starting to kind of establish yourself as somebody that has I suppose, for want of a better term, without having my head up my ass, a legitimate podcast, because I've done enough episodes so I can at least say, look, I've done a few. You kind of just have to accept that on the day it just wasn't important for them to turn up, and that's because the reality is it's not their podcast, it's yours. And
but it's one thing, things happen, but at least get back to you and say, I'm so sorry this happened, and whatever. I mean,
yeah, because
rude is rude.
Yeah, for sure. But to be fair, to be all credit, you and I had a few technical difficulties and we just resolved them in the moment. Do you know what I mean? And so it just kind of just shows, different people do different things, don't they? But it's just interesting because if you saw their bios and what they say and what they suggest, you just like, look, I've got first-hand experience of you. You're not that person. But before we get off on a complete tangent, I suppose we're really here to talk about your book or books.
Oh, okay. I was. It's been so long. I forgot why we were here. I've been having a wonderful conversation.
To be honest, I will talk about anything.
That's it. That's what I thought it was. I'll talk about anything.
Yeah. So normally people come on because they want to talk about something, and then I do get off into tangents where I just ramble with people and we just have a good chat. Because let's be honest, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment that is worth talking about.
Absolutely.
What neck of the woods are you in then in America?
I'm in New Jersey, and I don't have an accent.
No.
Yes, according to most people, I do. They could tell I'm from New Jersey. Well, how? I don't know.
I wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? I have no idea when it comes to accents. And my only experience of America is California, on a holiday in 2019 where I surfed a little bit of California down the west coast, and it just reminded me of my friend during the holiday broke two of his toes while we were surfing. So that's pretty much writes the holiday off. So you got to do something else. And we had this big RV. So do you know what? We were down in San Diego. Why don't we just drive up to the Yosemite Mountains? It doesn't look far. Jesus. Because in the UK, nothing is far. All right?
Yeah.
So and I swear, and you'll know this because you live in America, when you look at the map, you're literally just cutting across the corner of the desert. Yeah, that was like a 9-hour drive.
Yeah.
Literally, if you obeyed all of the speed limits, didn't break a single one, I'm pretty sure you can drive from Land's End to John O'Groats, which is two furthest points of the United Kingdom, in 12 hours.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And that wouldn't even get you that'd get you about halfway up California. So when the people say, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends which way you're going and stuff, and probably a bit further than that, to be fair. But it's just like when you're in New Jersey, and of course I'm looking at a map thinking where New Jersey is over on the East Coast, and I'm like, and I've stopped since talking to American guests saying that's near so and so, isn't it? It's like no, it's about a day's drive away. It's not near anything.
Well, California, I think, is our third largest state land-wise, but it's also one of the longest.
Yeah.
And my first vacation always had this fascination with California because I wanted to be a communication person way back when. So I flew into LA, drove down to San Diego, and then drove up to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that drive, along the way, I did stop at the Redwood Forest and all that stuff. But you're right. I mean, it's a whole day's drive just to get from LA down to San Diego.
Yeah.
Another day to go back past LA, and another day to go halfway up to San Francisco. So it's a trek. Yeah.
The distances are massive. So just for reference, because for people like me, because I've never been on the east side. So New Jersey is that New York State?
New York City is on the island. New
Right.
Jersey is opposite. Northern Jersey is opposite it, and then New York State itself is kind of above us a little bit and to the west.
Right.
So we're kind of between New York and Delaware.
Okay. Yeah.
New
Yeah.
York State and the state of Delaware.
Okay.
And Pennsylvania is on the west side.
Yeah. Okay. Because I always confuse New Jersey and New York as being the same place.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the northern part kind of looks like, you know, the forested area or upstate New York. They're kind of similar as far as visuals goes.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, all of my New York references are basically from 1970s and 1980s TV series and films.
Okay.
Because I'm like everybody in Britain. Do you know what I mean? I know New York from television.
I can't even say we're not wearing bell bottoms anymore because I think those are coming back. So
yeah, this is true. This is true. So anyway, back to the books. You wrote some books.
I wrote some books. Always wanted to be a published author, but I never had anything to say about anything.
Uh-huh.
I just went through life, nose down, working as hard as I could to do whatever. So finally, when my mom passed, that was the first one, and this is
A Life Well Lived, isn't it?
A Life Well Lived. And the kind of booklet, when you're writing it, it's, oh my God, all these words, and when it's published, it's I think you have to have 200 pages before it becomes a hardcover.
Something like that,
in America. Yeah. So mine was like 175 pages, so it wasn't a hardcover, it was a soft cover. But I self-published, and that process itself, the self-publishing financially was doable, but then there's no marketing behind it.
No.
So it's, that's another $10,000 if you really think about it, to get it off the ground, and then, more money to continue it. And I constantly get these spam emails about these organizations. We can market your book, and we'll organize the cover to make it more appealing to this group or that group or whatever. And it's like, and it's only going to cost you $5,000. It's like, I don't think so.
Yeah. I remember self-publishing a book probably nearly 10 years ago. And the only thing I learned from that, like you say, if you're self-publishing, it's all on you and it's all coming out of your pockets. And
yeah, absolutely.
And if you want the book to do well, the best thing you can do is just advertise it on whatever bookstore you're selling it. Maybe advertise on Facebook, but be honest about what your budget is, and
right.
That's it. And if you've got $10,000 to put it in over like an advertising campaign of 6 months, but don't let somebody do it for you. Watch some YouTube tutorials, because a $10,000 budget, somewhere between a quarter to half of that is going to go to the advertiser, and you just losing advertising revenue.
Oh, absolutely. And so it went from $12.98 a book. I think on Amazon it's down. Last time I looked, it was down to $3 and some odd change. But anyway, it's a biography of my mom. She passed. I wrote down because she was a comic person, not really wanting to be. I mean, things just happened to her. So I wanted to write all that down before those things had gotten forgotten. And so they're there. And so after I published it, I probably should have included this or not included that or whatever. But it's as she is. It's passed now, and it's in writing. And then the second one, I worked for Toys R Us for over 25 years.
Yeah.
And in the toy box is my experience going through the management training program. I think that's the book right there. And then working in the stores in Northern Jersey area. And from there, I got transferred to the area office because each market had its own, area office with a general manager and all the functions that were necessary. And since I was so close to where the corporate headquarters were here in Northern Jersey, one of my functions at the DC ended up being the distribution center, ended up being placing the black and white ads that ran every Sunday in the newspapers back then.
Okay.
And they came to headquarters. So I dealt with people in the marketing / advertising department at corporate headquarters, and one of the managers was from the field, and he wanted to go. He's from the Detroit area. He wanted to go back. So I think I was an easy fit without them spending a lot of money to replace him. So they brought me to corporate headquarters, and that's where I was probably 20 of those 25 years.
Oh, wow.
So,
it's a long, long time. So,
yeah.
So were you at Toys R Us before the internet?
Oh, absolutely. I was at Toys R Us before Excel. I was at Toys R Us when we had Mac computers that were like a big box.
Yeah.
Yes.
So were you there? When did you leave Toys R Us?
Around 2006, I think. 2006, 2007, something like that.
Okay, so the internet boom had kicked in.
Yeah.
Because I try and I probably bore people, but I try and explain to people that the 70s, 80s and 90s, and I only say the 70s because I was born in 74. So, you can't compare anything about that to today, because the internet has changed the world beyond anybody's recognition.
Oh, absolutely. The black and white ads.
Yeah.
We had to punch up the items that were being advertised, and every store had a different number of those items in stock. So there had to be a certain number of items in stock in all the stores before you could actually advertise legally. So you would cut out an alternate to paste over for that particular store and that particular newspaper coverage, and it was all done by with rubber cement. You pasted it over, you shipped it out, you mailed it out to the newspaper so that they could input it for the Sunday edition. Everything was very manual back then.
Yeah,
but it was a lot of fun.
I honestly, I say to people, it was a simpler time, not easier, but definitely in many ways, a more enjoyable time.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's like I say, industry, marketing, advertising, toys, you will never be able to explain to somebody today the excitement of Christmas adverts for toys when you were a kid.
Right.
And that when you were a little kid, going into Toys R Us was a big deal because there were no computers. Do you know what I mean? There were no handheld devices. They were actual toys that you had to play with. So if somebody came out with something new or something different, you'll remember this. I remember when Buzz Lightyear first came out.
Oh, yeah.
Because a guy that I worked with, his son wanted one, and they were sold out across the UK. And my mum was in town, I think she was in Bath or something, doing Christmas shopping. So I can't even remember what it was. So she just phoned me up and said, they've got some in the shop. Do you want me to get one for your friend? And I was just like, I don't know. Because it was only like 20 quid, which at the time would probably been like $30. But it's it was a lot of money to buy on the off chance that he couldn't get one. Because there was no mobile to get in touch with him. I was going to have to wait till Monday morning to see him at work. Do you know what I mean? And you can't explain that to people. So I did it. I said, yeah, do you know what? Get it. I'll pay for it. And then literally I've 48 hours of shitting myself because if he doesn't want this, I've got a Buzz Lightyear because there's no eBay to put it on to sell it. There's no way to tell the world you've got this Buzz Lightyear for sale that's never been opened to try and get your money. I mean, fortunately, Diamond bloke, he's like, I turned up, I said, I've managed to get one. Do you want it? Here it is. And he was just like over the moon because they were still sold out where he was. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So it all fell in good. Now I didn't, no markup, no nothing. That's the price. But honestly, it just when I think about that story, it wouldn't be a problem today. You just ring somebody, Do you want this? Yeah.
Right. Or text. No, they don't ring it. You text. Everything today is a friggin' text.
Oh.
It's like, call and you get a text. No. Talk to me. Call me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the
but
book...
Toys R Us...
Go on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I was going to say Toys R Us didn't open in Britain until like mid-90s, I think, right?
Yeah. I think it might have been mid-90s. I thought it was definitely the 90s. Because it was a big deal. It was a big deal when Toys R Us turned up. It definitely was the 90s. Cause I remember somebody making fun of me because I wanted to go. And they were like, you're an adult. It's like, yeah, but we've never had a Toys R Us. You know what I mean? Yeah,
our celebrations were very good. When
Toys R Us... Well, I was going to say, when Toys R Us turned up in the UK, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, our marketing efforts for new stores and then renovations to the old stores, and they're always a big deal. Lots of costume characters, the important ones of the day. Lots of discounts for that day. You know, it was a big deal. You know, and the established stores, though, it did show that moms hated, once their kids got to be a certain age, they kind of shied away from hating to go to the stores because their kids always wanted something when they were in the store. So the kids always stayed home. It's like the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, or whatever. Isn't this cute? Don't you like this? And the kid has no idea what they're saying, but they would buy it for the child. But yeah, it's amazing dynamic.
I remember one of the things I really remember is Toys R Us. The shops were always big for what we were used to in the UK. So there were toy shops in every town in the UK, but they would often be one-man bands, just one person in a shop. It might be a bit specialised. It might be a bit bigger than that, but generally not much bigger, you know. Then Toys R Us turned up and they were the size of supermarkets. Hundreds of staff and, hundreds of kids. And and that was just unusual. We hadn't ever seen anything on that scale in the UK. It was just... And also, because they were on that scale, they tended to only be in the big towns and cities. So if you didn't have one, do you know what I mean? So you might be driving down the road and you see a big Toys R Us sign. And you'd be like, oh, yeah, look, they got a Toys R Us. And it was almost, it was a bragging right. Like lots of things. If you've got certain shops and other places doesn't, it replicates, the size of your town and your pulling power. And Toys R Us in the 90s fell into that category.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the book that you've written about Toys R Us? What is it? What's this content?
Well, again, this one deals with my experiences at the area office. First in the stores, because there was a training program. So you start out just following a manager in the store around, their daily duties. At that point, there was a front end manager and a floor manager. So the front end took care of the money and the finances, and the floor manager took care of the stocking of the items. The floor manager was always the more important one, because if the items were not on the floor, nobody's going to be making money. So the training program was about 6 months. So you rotate like every couple of months to a new store, new manager, new experiences, and whatever. And then you end up being an assistant store manager. So you have your own section of the store that you would manage and take care of making sure everything was out on the floor. And so I was an assistant manager for about 1.5 years before I actually became a store manager. So I went from our Paramus store, Paramus, New Jersey, which was maybe 12 miles outside of New York City. But it was on a main highway. So people from New York City would bus out on a Saturday and stop at the store. And it ended up even being... Paramus, New Jersey or Bergen County has blue laws, so they're closed on Sundays, except for, emergency items like supermarkets can stay open, drugstores can stay open, and things like that. So even being closed on that Sunday, it was still it ranked between 1 and 5 of the best money making stores in the country.
Wow.
So that Saturday it's always a madhouse in our store. The Monday after that weekend, and because of the blue laws, you had to be out of the store by midnight on Saturday night, and the police were in the parking lots enforcing those laws, which was it was a godsend for the people who worked in the store, because
I could just imagine the police turning up to literally arrest children. Get out of the toy shop.
But going in on the Monday, I mean, the store was trash. So Monday was basically trying to put the store back together again. But then I ended up going to the area office, because my background before Toys R Us kind of was marketing, advertising for industrial, products. And since that background, they needed an advertising person in the area office. So I ended up being the advertising person for the area office. And that alone, I also, one of my duties was human resources for a market. So that's how I actually first went to the area office. Again, one of the managers was relocating, I think, we opened the Denver market at that point. So he wanted to go out there and be the human resource manager for the Denver market. So I became his replacement. My market. I'm sorry. See here, technical difficulties again.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. My market was New York, basically the New York stores, which included New York State.
Yeah.
And a few stores in northern Jersey. So I recruited people who wanted to get into the management training program for those particular stores. So it was the entire human resource function, where you had training programs and, for equity programs, for, not saying this and not saying that, not doing this, not doing that type of programs, so they don't get sued by customers.
Yeah.
But it was a very extensive learning program, the entire process, because people are people, and they are so different everywhere.
Oh yeah. It's years and years ago, I used to work in the car trade, and I worked for various manufacturers.
I lost. Well, thank you. But that's what my toy book was about. Yeah. And I am writing my experiences at corporate headquarters now.
Okay.
So,
just going back to your first book about your mum.
Mm-hmm.
Who was your mum?
Her name was Tina. She was a first generation, Italian. She was born here in Paterson, New Jersey, on Ryle Avenue. She was the last of 5 children that my grandmother had.
Uh-huh.
Two of the children died in either childbirth or early after being born. But she led a tough life. You're talking like 1948 is when she got, or 47 is when she got married. She had my brother a year later. I was born in the early 50s. My father was not really a father. I mean, he never lost a day's work in his life, whether he was sick or felt like going or whatever, but he gambled away the salary, and he loved to go to his local gin mill and have his beer or his wine. So she always had money issues trying to raise 3 children. And back then, getting on welfare for a white person was very difficult. You really needed to either be Hispanic or African American or some sort of race other than white. So she was the type that always got checked up on by whatever services she applied for, because they could, if they went to a black neighborhood, doors were slammed in their faces. She would invite them and have coffee. You want some breakfast? You want toast? You want pancakes or whatever? So she did her best to raise us. I had cousins. Her sister was a great aunt. But as a child, you see how they raised their kids and how my brother and my sister, had to be raised. And it's not that you were jealous; you were kind of envious.
Yeah.
That I wish we had that stuff.
Yeah.
Not that we were jealous that they had it, and we didn't want them to have it. But when we got to be adults, we realized that we worked hard for what we have, and you know, our family units tended to be stronger and better and better lasting than the people who had it a little bit easier than we did. So
It's
I guess
difficult.
in the end it all worked out.
Yeah, but it's difficult though, isn't it? Because I have an interesting view with my dad because him and I don't really talk. Kind of for the same reason. Do you know what I mean? His money was his money. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, what's the family got to do with it? I mean, it's like, well, and it's the same thing. I'd see other kids with their father, and I didn't resent them. I wasn't jealous of them, but I was envious that I didn't have that love and affection with my dad.
Right. I mean, and I missed out on. My mother had a brother, so we had Uncle Nick, but he was our uncle. He wasn't our father. He wasn't there for to cheer us on at a sporting event or tell us to get involved in the sporting event. So to this day, I'm not really a sports person. My brother loved to go fishing. My father did bring him fishing. My father's brothers were hunters as well, so my brother got into hunting and fishing with them. But again, they weren't our father. They were uncles. And since they were on my father's side, my mother kind of resented them because they did nothing to help her situation. But it was my father. An interesting story. One of our landlords, then you had local supermarkets. We didn't have the big supermarket chains that you have to go to malls and whatever. So he owned the local supermarket. He was our landlord, but he was also the local bookie. So why he did this, I have no idea. But he knew my father. He knew the issues with my father. He gave him the week's, I guess, betting funds to go be placed on a particular horse that they knew from whatever reason was going to win. My father didn't like that horse, so he put it all on a horse that he liked. Of course, he lost, and they lost, and it's like kind of the mafia coming after you at a certain. So he had to skip town for like 3 or 4 days before he came back. And again, they came by. They tried to intimidate my mother, and she was like 4'11". Nothing intimidated her really. So she told him, "You get the hell out of the house. He's not here. You can look. I don't care. We have the. What do you want? I don't have $4,000 I can give you. I'm sorry. There's nothing here that's worth any of that money." And they left. But that's the type of person he was.
Yeah. It is. It's funny, isn't it? Because we kind of get mixed up and caught up in these stereotypes of what our fathers should be. And I don't know how old I was, but I was in my 20s when I realised, you're looking at stereotypes and I thought, oh yeah, that one was my dad. Because you didn't realise that as a kid. You just kind of realise that like other kids at school, their dads, they did things with it, like, oh, what do you do at the weekend or what are you doing tonight? And they're doing something with their dad. And you're just like, I don't do anything with my dad.
No.
Well, I get in the way apparently, but
every once in a while, you play. Then you used to play outside with the kids in the neighborhood or whatever. So every once in a while, one of the other dads would say, "Why don't you come with us, do this, do that, or whatever?" So I mean, it was enjoyable. But again, it only reinforced what you kind of missed on your own.
Yeah,
so.
What you knew, sort of thing.
Yep.
And so, did you say your mum got married in 1947?
Correct.
So how old was she when she got married?
I think she just turned 18, I think.
So she was a Depression child.
Yes.
Born in. Wow.
Yeah. My grandmother worked piecemeal, in a sewing factories, I guess, in the air, because Paterson, New Jersey was big in industrial
Yeah.
silk mills and clothing and all that stuff. Excuse me. And she used to bring these bundles of, she used to put shoulder pads in coats and, jackets and stuff like that. So she used to carry these bundles home because she got paid by the piece. So she would, she worked all day at the factory and then she worked all night at home. So my aunt and my mother had to take care of the house and the cooking and all the other, and you're talking 10, girls that are 10, 12 years old, assuming the roles so that, their mother can bring, money into the house. And she ended up buying a house for them to live in. That wasn't the greatest house, but it was a house of their own. Way back when it's working piecemeal. So it was the whole family was an amazing situation.
Yeah. Did you know your grandmother?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you imagine explaining to her today that we decide politics because of people's feelings?
No.
Could you imagine sitting down and having that conversation saying, hey, guess what we're doing today in Washington because people's feelings have been hurt?
She called a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I was there as a kid. Remember that somebody knocked on the door and she opened it and she said, "Do I know you? Do I owe you money? What do you want? I don't need it. Bye." And she slammed the door in their face. That's the type of person she was. Don't friggin' waste my time with nonsense. I don't have that time.
But that was the generation. That's what all of they were like that wherever you went, because it was just that. If you're not selling something and I don't know you, you shouldn't be on my doorstep.
Absolutely.
You have no reason to be here, and I have no interest in finding out why you are here. They were so tough, mentally so tough.
Yeah. But like I said, they had and strict. It's like the girls had to be in by a certain time. My uncle obviously was a young man. He wanted to go out and play around with the other guys and whatever. And he had to be in by a certain time because she didn't have the time to go out and try to find him. And if he wasn't there, I mean, he would run under his bed. My grandmother was a heavy woman, so he would run and hide where she couldn't get to. So, she would get the broom and poke him when he was hiding under the bed and like trying to get him out, to grab him by the neck and and she didn't spare the rule.
They didn't.
He had a proverbial wooden spoon, and if he did something wrong, he got the wooden spoon.
I love those times. My nan was born in Camp Isle in Southern Ireland, around the same time as your grandmother. Around the same time as your mum. I think my nan was 1911 or something like that. And the stories that I've heard from her, like nobody had shoes because we couldn't afford them. They wore shoes on a Sunday to go to church. That was it.
Yeah.
And there were so many brothers and sisters. One group would go to church in the morning, and the other church would other group would go to church in the afternoon because there wasn't enough shoes to go round.
Oh, jeez.
But that's what every family was doing.
Yeah, but they survived. They survived and they thrived for the most part. Unlike today, it's like everybody wants everything for nothing. They don't want to work for it.
No, and there's no value. They don't appreciate what they do have.
No. And I probably shouldn't be saying this, but right now we're having a dock workers strike. On the East Coast. And again, they work very hard. I'm not saying they don't work hard. And everybody deserves to get the most that they can, doing their job. But their base is $70,000-$80,000 to begin with. Most of them work 12-hour days, if not 18-hour days, and so that's all overtime. So with the overtime, a lot of these people are making $150,000-$200,000 a year, and they want a 50% increase. It's like, well, good for you, but don't screw the rest of our country.
It's
And then it went from 50%. I think he wants, the head of the union wants 75% increase. It's like, yeah, it's over X number of years, but still, there's no sympathy. There's no sympathy.
No, I've
for
seen
these
that.
people.
I haven't seen much on social media. I've seen the speech by the union leader saying that, there's X amount of workers all along the East Coast and we're shutting down and nothing's coming in. So,
right.
And
hold the entire country hostage for what?
And when you go through the comments, there's no sympathy. They're all like, "You're joking. You're already on too much money."
Yeah, no, it's and again, they have a history of making decent salaries ever since I was a kid. But it's a very nepotism type of situation. The only way you get jobs there is if you need to know somebody, either your aunt, uncle, father, brother, or whatever, pulls you in when there's an opening available. So it was a very closed and close-knit type of situation, at each of the dock areas. But it's again, it's like you want to be a millionaire being a dock worker. It's like it's at our expense.
Yeah, I mean, I literally I've no knowledge of the dock workers in that part of America at all. Like I said, I found it interesting because I think the first thing I saw about it was yesterday, and I've only seen a couple of bits on social media. And like you said, there's no sympathy. The only sympathy there seems to be is people saying, this is what happens when Washington doesn't listen to you.
Right.
And they're kind of putting it at the fault of, and the other one is, this wouldn't have happened under Trump, and I don't know. I don't know enough about American politics to know what the issue with the dock workers is, because I haven't seen anything about it. My microphone keeps switching off.
Oh.
And I'm kind of like sitting around it like it's wrapped in cotton wool and is made of some form of nuclear reactor, because I don't know what, like.
Are you being bugged?
I tell you.
Are the Democrats listening into this?
Yeah, this is it. We started talking about. We said that infamous word Trump. So you literally were just saying about the strikes are also to do with automation.
Correct. AI.
Yeah.
And it just astounds me that employees can tell the employer how they need to run their business. It's like if I tried that way back when, they would have said, bye, it was nice to meet you and have a wonderful life.
I think the problem is, and I honestly don't know how you bridge the gap, because on one hand, AI automation is inevitable, but it comes at the expense of people's jobs. And
yes,
you're going to, doesn't matter who you are, you're saying to somebody, you've got to give up your job, because I found a 24-hour system that does it more efficiently, just as quick, if not quicker, and it's not like you're employing 100 people and laying off one person. You're like, we can probably get rid of 90 people and keep on 10. And it's probably like that all the way up the coast.
Right.
And
right.
Like I said, I've no idea how you bridge this, because on one hand, it's definitely inevitable. It's just going to happen whether we like it or not, because you're not going to get big businesses paying out $100,000 salaries if they can just pay out $100,000 once and replace 90 people.
Yeah, absolutely. But supposedly the West Coast is working and have a model that involves artificial intelligence, and anywhere that where something was automated more so than it was, it's the same number of employees, if not more, because the output is greater.
Okay.
So you still need the employees on the output side to, I guess, force or get the containers on the ships to go out to wherever they need to go. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a little right and wrong on both sides, but it's inevitable. It's
It is. AI is gonna. The funny thing is, everybody has said from the beginning, like as soon as AI becomes a thing, businesses will use it to replace jobs. And I've listened to lots of different people, and one thing that's always interesting is people say like, well, if AI come in and take loads of jobs, businesses will need to somehow pay people not to work, and it's like, no, that doesn't work. What they'll do is they'll find a way to utilize AI to make more profits, and those profits will come by not having to pay wages.
Right.
It's an easy profit. If I don't have to pay somebody $100,000 a year, I'm $100,000 a year up every year. If I can do that to 5 people, I'm already $500,000 up a year. Perfect.
Right.
This is a system that works, and it's just profits, because that's the nature of the beast. You're not going to ever change that. The other argument I've heard, which potentially has truth, is that there will be kind of some ebb and flow as it happens, but sooner or later there will just be more niche businesses, and that people will just reskill, change, etc., etc.
Right. Right. I mean, that happened with me. After Toys R Us, I ended up working for Macy's department store. Yeah. And I took care of men's private brands in the Macy's stores here in northern New Jersey. And then that program ended. So you had the choice of taking the package or moving on to something else at Macy's that could also end. So I took the package, and the girl that did the same thing that I did in Southern Jersey called me one day. She said, "Sal, do you realize that unemployment has a program in effect that if you were in a job that was no longer in demand, they would train you in something that was in demand?" So as my unemployment, and this was towards when my unemployment was running out. So I went to talk to somebody at unemployment, and I ended up being today working as a massage therapist, because at something I always wanted to do. And at the very bottom of the list, most of the jobs were like phlebotomists and medical billing and stuff like that in the medical fields. And at the very, very bottom was massage therapy. So they extended my unemployment for 4 months. My training for massage was 6 months. And I ended up having a new skill that today I'm kind of retired, but not really. That it gives me the extra money I need just to make ends meet. So
that's perfect, though, isn't it? It does. Yeah. Things like that kind of work out. But I think it's that thing that we just naturally fear. What if it doesn't? I don't know what's happening next. Or what if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't happen?
Yeah. At this stage of my life, everybody says this, it's so cliche. Things work out the way they're supposed to work out. You could only be lucky so long, and then something in the universe says that you need to feel loss so that you can enjoy what you have. And it kind of, in my life, it kind of progressed that way.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. That does make sense. It is. Yeah, I was talking to somebody last week, and we had this interesting conversation about people never write down their achievements, what they've done well, and how lucky their life has been, and stuff like that. They always just focus on what they don't have. They never focus on what they have. And he did this thing where he just talked about, let's write down everything that's gone well for you in your life. It doesn't matter what it is. It could just be, just like that. You got given a package by Macy's, and then somebody phones you up out of the blue and said, "Did you know you can get training on unemployment?" Like, no. So you go down and have a chat with them. Yeah, we'll extend your unemployment for 4 months, and then you can train to be a massage therapist, which, as you said, something you always wanted to do, but would never have done if Macy's didn't pull the rug.
Yeah, no. In fact, when I was at corporate, there were three of us guys that were either marketing managers, advertising managers, um, direct mail managers, whatever. There were three of us. One day we were all so frustrated about everything, and we were just talking, and like two of us said, "Yeah, I just wish I could be a massage therapist."
Yeah.
Whatever. And if I was the only one of the three that actually achieved my goal.
It's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? It's. I'm just conscious of time, so just going to finish with a last question, which is a random one. So just imagine for a second that you're in a magical world and time travel is possible, and you can go anywhere at any time in history that you want to go. Okay. Where would you go? Why would you go there? What car would you drive, and what music would you listen to?
I've always had this attraction for ancient Egypt. I don't know why. I was never envious of walking into a palace and saying ooh and ah, that's nice, it's whatever. It's like in my past life, I think I experienced riches, and in other lives I experienced poverty, I guess, somewhere along the line. So I think I've run the spectrum. So except for the crown jewels, when I went through that, I went, ooh, ah. That I did go, ooh, and ah. But, it's, so I think I just have this attraction to ancient Egypt for some reason. So I would kind of, but I would only want to go if I could live in the palace at that point in time. My mother's side of the family, my grandmother, the name is Longobardi, and somebody did a genealogy thing, and the Longobardi family was kind of nobility in northern Italy at some point in time. So maybe that's where in my genes I felt something, that way. So, but either ancient Rome or ancient Egypt, which is basically about the same time period anyway.
Yeah. What car would you drive?
What car would I drive? My favorite fantasy car would be an Audi convertible.
Yep.
For some reason. And that's from the movies from the 60s. I remember Annette Funicello driving down the West Coast Highway in California with the yellow Audi convertible that was kind of yellowish on the outside with the tan interior. It was just a beautiful car. So that's the car I always wanted to have.
And what music would you be listening to?
I like everything from like Ricky Martin to Doris Day. So everything has its place in time.
So we're just going to set that up as a playlist, and whatever comes along on that journey back in time is what you're going to listen to.
Comes along. And I when I listen to talk radio in the car today, I have Sirius radio, so I listen to the Seriously Sinatra. So he has a lot of the oldies that they play at that station.
Nice.
So I mean that's when talent was talent. It's today it's like everybody and his brother can be a rapper. Everybody can do there's so much out there, and there's nothing special anymore to me anyway.
No, I think I completely agree, because nothing was filtered. When you look at cars in particular, cars today, they're shared platforms. The 5 manufacturers will share the same base of a car. Go back 50 years, they were competing to stand out, not to be the same. Everybody was competing to be different, not the same. And now they kind of try to compete to be different under the same umbrella of being the same.
Yeah. When I was a kid, you could buy a brand new Chevy for $1,000, brand new. A Cadillac which was
nice.
the car.
Yeah.
was only $5,000 brand new, and that was fully loaded, whatever fully loaded was back then. And it's like today, it's my little piece of junk will be mine in 2 more months, but it took me 5 years to pay it off.
Yeah.
So it's.
But that is a fantastic place to stop. Thank you ever so much for your patience with all the technical difficulties.
Oh, thank you. And again, go on Amazon.
I will make sure the links are in the description.
A life well lived and in the toy box.
Sal, take care. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.
You as well. My pleasure. Thank you.
And there was Sal and I. And yeah, again, I got caught on one of my favourite subjects, the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, and whatever else. But it's interesting, isn't it? For all of that and all of the technical difficulties, we still managed to have a good chat, one that I enjoyed, and I hope you did too. And as always, I really appreciate the support, the subscribers, the people that share, the people that comment. It's always appreciated, so thank you very much. And wherever you are from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed.